Hey Reader fam, today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts, opinions, and feels on The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. The concept behind this story is really cool. It's basically how in every story there's always the chosen one. The one who will step in as a leader. The one chosen to start a revolution. The person who is destined to save the world. And instead of this story being focused on the chosen one, we follow the rest of the people. The not so chosen ones. So in this book we follow this character by the name of Mikey and his friends who are just trying to survive high school. Each chapter opens up with a little blurb of what the chosen ones are up to, what kind of chaos they're currently involved in, and then the rest of the chapter just follows Mikey and his friends. Mikey's story is pretty ordinary when you compare it to the chosen one's story and the extraordinary things that they're facing. While this story is technically set in a fantasy world, I wouldn't categorize it as fantasy, I would categorize it as contemporary. The only other book I've read by Patrick Ness was A Monster Calls, so going into this book I had rather high expectations because I loved A Monster Calls and I consider that book to be one of my all-time favorites. But unfortunately I didn't end up loving The Rest of Us Just Live Here as much as I'd hoped to. And a part of me wonders if that's because I went into this book with really high expectations or if because I was just completely comparing this book to Ness's other book, but this book just ended up not being for me. I will say that this book does things and explores things that are super important, and in that aspect I really liked this book. I really appreciate this book. For example, Patrick Ness created this story full of diverse characters. Characters facing mental illness. Characters with skin color other than white. And characters who are figuring out their sexuality. The diversity element within this story was done so well. Especially the mental illness aspect of this story. I found that aspect of the story just to be so eye-opening. And I'm glad that people will end up reading this book and be exposed to those things and kind of having their minds opened up to what people with mental illness are facing on a daily basis. So that was great. But the overall story I didn't love. I just feel like Patrick Ness had this fantastic idea. The idea of writing about the people other than the chosen ones. And it just felt like there was so much potential with this story. So many places he could have taken this story, so many things he could have done with this story, and in my opinion it just fell flat. There was just so much potential here and I didn't feel like he did as much as he could have with this story. There are things about the story that I did enjoy though. Like I said, at the beginning of each chapter we get little snippets of what the chosen ones are up to, and I loved those little snippets. They were hilarious. They were basically like little parodies of other chosen one stories, and they were just hilarious, full of cliches and so many tropes, and it was just super comical. And I also really liked a lot of the complicated relationships that we see throughout this story. I'll admit that I wasn't the biggest fan of all the characters that we got to meet throughout this story. A lot of them just felt super flat to me, but I found the different relationships between the characters super interesting. I also just wasn't a huge fan of how this story kind of came to a close. The ending just kind of felt like, well, that's all? I did like the writing though. This is a very well written book. And in that right, I think it's good. But I think plot-wise, something just felt a little bit off to me. And like I said, I would have just liked to have seen Patrick Ness do more with this awesome concept. So those are all my thoughts, opinions, and feels on The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. You guys should let me know down below if you have read this book and what you thought about it. Obviously, I have a rather unpopular opinion, so it's a-okay if you disagree with me. If you love this book, you are still allowed to love this book just because I wasn't a massive fan of it. Even though I didn't love this book, I still think it did important things, and for that, I appreciate it. Also, let me know down below if you haven't read this book, but you are planning to pick it up and check it out. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so click subscribe if you want to be notified for when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew. Hey Reader fam, today I am bringing you a Q&A. I went on Twitter, asked you guys to ask me some questions, and today I'm gonna answer those questions.